Hi friends, I'm Bree. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to just get on here, do a casual discussion video and share my piece and my thoughts as to everything that's going on. At this point, it's no secret what's going on here in America. Core of it for me, there's a little girl that has to now live without her daddy over $20, and that makes me so sad and so terrified. I've just been so proud at all of the hard work and these videos that I've been seeing from Black content creators here on YouTube in the Booktube community. I see you and I'm so proud of you for using your platform to speak your truth. I think that there's a lot of behind the scenes things that viewers just aren't aware of. They aren't aware that are taking place. And I'm just so happy to see that people are speaking their truth. I was sitting here yesterday and I was just like, I feel like these conversations have happened before. I've been on Booktube, I've been watching Booktube and part of the Booktube community since 2014. And really, like, my friend Ashley from Bookish Realm, she posted a video today and I'll leave it linked down below. And she started making videos, I think in 2014 as well. I watched for about a year and then started making videos. And she was just like going through this timeline of stuff and I'm like, wow, I remember that, I remember that. And yesterday I was like, let me look. And I remember my friend Mickey from Mickey's Booktube experiment. I really wish she was still making videos. She's not, but her channel is still up. And I was like, I remember Mickey doing a video and calling content creators out, and I found it. I will leave it linked down below. It's also in my community tab. That was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I'm just like, nobody got the picture then. And I thought to myself, I wish that we would have fought a little bit harder then, and maybe now the Black content creators that are coming into the community wouldn't even have to worry about stuff like this had we fought harder 3 years ago. You know, it's crazy that we're still having these conversations, but unfortunately I don't feel like we'll ever stop having these conversations, because again, 3 years ago we were having these conversations. Ashley said something in her video that made so much sense. It's like, things will go back to normal after a while, and I just feel like that's exactly what will happen. Things will go back to normal and then something else will happen and we'll be having these conversations again. And I hate to be like that because I'm usually the positive person that tries to see the silver lining and, you know, positive vibes, all that. But I just, this weekend I've been really reflecting on, this is not the first time that we've had to have these conversations. I wanted to really focus on the storytelling aspect. I'm going to share some books that I've read and I've loved, and when times like this happen, I reflect back on whether it's a character or something in the story. Something about these books has really resonated with me and they've stood the test of time. And there are tons of book recommendations going around, and it's awesome to read Black authors, read diversely, you guys. Like, educate yourself. There's no excuse. There's no excuse, especially in a community where there are tons of teachers and principals and lawyers, like so many incredible careers out there. I do not believe that, like, when you say you need to be educated, we still need to be educated in 2020. It baffles me, but it's a real thing. I just wanted to share some of the books that I enjoy, and I'll share with you why. And if you find a new recommendation, great. You know, if you have any for me, I'm always open for recommendations, so just leave them down below. First and foremost, I want to talk about Passing. I think this is such a strong novel. It's a Harlem Renaissance novel, and I have never thought of writing. Just because I'm a reader does not make me an author. I don't know the first thing about writing a story, and every time I read a book, I'm in awe of the work that authors put in. I'm obsessed with the Harlem Renaissance, and I do aspire to write a Harlem Renaissance era romance, maybe a time travel romance. I loved this book, and this is one of the very few books that had a physical impact on me. When I was reading this book, my blood was boiling. I was so angry. So the heroine in this book is a Black woman who can pass as white, and she's married to a Black man. She lives as a Black woman, but she does have that option if that's what she wanted to do. She lives in Harlem. She's an events coordinator. I can't remember what the specifics were, but she's out and about one day and she links back up with two childhood friends who are also Black women who can pass pass as white. One of them lives as a black woman, but she's married to a white man who knows that his wife is black. And then the other one is passing as white and is married to a very racist white man who has no idea that his wife is black. And I remember they're like sitting on the couch and they're having this discussion about like, do you want more kids? And she's like, oh no, like what if that one is the one that comes out dark and he finds out I'm black? And then he comes in and he sees his wife with two white women. Like, you know, in that situation, it's like, I gotta change my identity. I gotta be white right now because he does not like black people. And you, the way that Nella Larsen writes the book, you are sitting there, for me as a black woman, I was sitting there on that couch uncomfortable listening to very racist white man speaking to his wife and speaking about black people and the things that he just recently witnessed. And you're so uncomfortable. And I feel like right now there's a lot of feelings of uncomfort. And this is one of those books, like if you want to explore the feeling of being uncomfortable, you should absolutely read. The story kind of goes from there. The woman that's married to the racist white man, she starts to really be envious of the main character because she's happy. She's, you know, out in the community, and Harlem was really popping during this time. You know, it was so beautiful to see the fun things that black people were able to do despite the crazy racial stuff that was going on around them. And she had kind of secluded herself and taken herself away from all of that to be safe, to have a better chance at life financially. And so she really starts to like find ways to sneak out and try to be part of this crowd that the main character is in. And that's really what the story is about. You know, for so long you've sacrificed your identity and now you're realizing that you miss it. And another really wonderful passing story that kind of does it with a twist is Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. So Queen Beverly Jenkins. She is a black historical romance author. She's a true gem. Forbidden was my first book by her. And in this one, our black heroine goes out west. She wants to open a shop. I think it was like a clothes shop or something like that. She has some missteps along the way and she ends up in a wagon with the wrong person. The person basically leaves her for dead because she will not have sex with him. So she's out in the desert roaming alone. She's rescued by this white man and this black man. Ryan is the hero and he is a black man passing as white. And what Queen Bev does with this novel is we really see that Ryan passes because he feels like he is able, and actions have shown that he was able to make more change as a white man versus a black man. And the story develops because he starts to really have feelings for our heroine. I think her name's Eddie. I say Eddie, but it might be Edie. He starts having feelings for her, but he is engaged to a white woman that comes from this big abolitionist family. And you know, she doesn't know that her husband is actually black. And you know, she's very pro-black until she finds out that her husband is actually black. But you know, I don't want to spoil it, but obviously that part comes out. Where the forbidden aspect comes into play is that he starts having these feelings for Eddie. And I mean, obviously he is engaged, but also he's living as a white man. Nobody knows he's actually black. I think except for the black man that he rescues Eddie with. I think there's only like one or two people who know. Interracial romance is illegal. You're engaged. This cannot happen. And it's just this really wonderful story about the reasons why some people made that choice. They had that option to change their identity, and how some people did do it for comfort, where, you know, like we saw in Passing by Nella Larsen, but some people did it because they wanted to make change, and it was easier to make change by changing their identity. And it's just, those are two really beautiful stories of, they're really dangerous. They're really dangerous stories. And I think that's such a reflection of what it's like to be black in America every day. It's dangerous. And yes, those are storylines that focus on people that have that privilege and that option of changing who they are. But at the core, it's still a very dangerous lifestyle. And I feel like it's still very dangerous to just be black in America. During times like this, I think about the great lengths that some people have had to go to, the great lengths that people of color have to go to every day just to survive. Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This is a big one that I'm pretty sure lots of people are recommending. On my previous channel, so I had a channel before this that I had for about 3 years. This was, I think, the first book review that I did on that channel. It was my highest feud video. And sometimes, like the only time I ever kick myself for taking that channel down is because I put so much work into that review. I wanted to just kill it because that book meant so much to me. It is a slave story. It's about Cora. She is a slave girl. I think it starts off in Georgia. It's been a very long time. Freedom is on her mind. She wants to be free. That's the baseline of the story. I remember a lot of people giving this book some slack because the Underground Railroad was an actual thing in the book, and I didn't mind that so much. Cora she represents hope. She runs, she hides. There are chapters upon chapters of her hiding and running. At the core of it, she set her mind on freedom, and she was not going to stop until that's what she got. And I feel like that just, you know, when we're going through things like that now, I have to reflect back on Cora and tell myself, Cora is a fictional character, but she represents so many people that on foot, by wagon, by train, hiding out, whatever, they wanted to be free, and they just kept going. They kept going. And I feel like that's what I tell myself. I'm terrified because I'm a mom, and I'm not gonna lie, when I have my really dark days, I really ask myself, why did you choose to become a mom? If you would have known that America would be like this, would you have chosen to be a mom? Would you have chosen to bring kids into this situation? And in those moments, sometimes I'm like, absolutely would not have. It was totally selfish of me to make that decision. But we're here now, and we have to persevere, and we just have to keep going. And I love Colson Whitehead for making Cora and for bringing that story into my life. I think about it all the time. Next is Negroland by Margot Jefferson. This is a memoir, and it's so good. It's really not a heavy story, and it's one that I used to recommend all the time. Negroland. So some of the cities like Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago, this one takes place in Chicago, they would have their own like black elite areas of the city. Margot Jefferson's dad specifically was this doctor at like the first black hospital in Chicago, I think. It's been a really long time, but still there's parts of it that really stick with me. What this story is about is that regardless of their privilege and the fact that they had money and her dad was this doctor, at the end of the day they were still black. She talks about how they took this trip to Atlantic City, and her dad, doctor, you know, made these room reservations and everything, and then they get there and the hotel clerk sees that they're black, and it's like, oh yeah, you can't have that room. You have to stay at the room at the end of the hall, like where nobody can see you. And her dad's like, I'm a doctor. Like, I have money. We have money for the room that we asked for. But that didn't matter. The fact that he was black trumped everything else. That just really still resonates with me today. Like, I'm always having to be aware. I'm always having to be aware. I think about my childhood and growing up in the Midwest, small town Missouri, playing basketball and playing in towns. Like, we would play in towns outside of our town that on the books still, because nobody had changed the law, black people were not supposed to be out once the sun went down, once the street lights came out. I have always had to be aware of my identity, you know, and it's just really an interesting story of how you think that you don't have to worry about those things anymore. Like, yeah, we're black, but we have a little bit of money. No, you are still black at the end of the day. And I think that that really resonates with me with a lot of the things that are going on Booktube. You know, yeah, I'm a reader and I'm part of this really wonderful community, but every time I post a video, I wonder, is this the day that I get a really racist comment? I'm still black. Are the reasons why I don't really get that many views on my videos because I'm not aesthetically pleasing? Because in the thumbnail, they can see that it's a black woman. Yeah, sure, she's a reader. That's cool, but she's a black reader. You're still black. And I loved this. So I think that it's just, you know, when I really am reflecting on identity and the fact that, like, yeah, I'm doing well for myself. I retired from the military. I'm a military veteran. I've been a law enforcement officer. At the end of the day, when I walk the streets of America, I'm still a black woman. And if you really want to understand that, this is a really wonderful memoir to read. Indigo by Beverly Jenkins, another Beverly Jenkins, because I have to plug some romance in there. In this one, we follow a free woman, but she was born into slavery. She was born into slavery, I believe it's South Carolina, and the type of crops that they worked with, the women all had, their hands were dyed blue from this indigo plant. And as a kid in slavery, that represented womanhood for her. She felt like, when I'm grown up, my hands will be blue. It was something that she looked forward to. And as the story progresses, she's a free woman. She's living up in Michigan and her hands are dyed. And now that dye represents the fact that she was enslaved. She lived in bondage for a part of her life. I want to mention this because Beverly Jenkins does a wonderful job of flawlessly and tactfully placing historical facts into her books, in her romances, to where it's not brain dumpy at all. She just does it so that you really transport yourself to the time period. But regardless of the time period, the location, whatever her story is about, she reminds us that love always shines through and that people have always found a way to love. And that just gives me so much hope. It really gives me so much hope. And as a mom who is terrified, scared shitless, my love for my boys, for my daughter, for my babies is way more heavier, way more significant than the fear that I have to live with. And I always think about the work that Queen Beverly Jenkins does when she writes her romances, and how she just wants to remind us that despite what's going on around us, people still are able to love. And Unconditional Freedom by Alyssa Cole. This one it's so good. It follows a free woman of color named Elle, and she's really smart. She has like this photographic memory. So she links up with this like group of spies, and she's like, you know, she takes this job basically to go back to the South as a slave undercover. And it's as she's undercover as a spy back in slavery that she links up with this guy named Malcolm. And Malcolm is also a spy. He is undercover as a Confederate soldier. He is a white man. And this is their romance. He's totally smitten with Elle. It's a wonderful romance, and she has to put him in check a couple of times. And I wanted to mention this one because we're seeing a lot of videos about allies and stuff like that. She has to put him in check because he's like, you know, we're fighting the same fight. And she's like, no, we're on the same side. I get that. But our fights aren't the same. She's like, you are here in the South undercover as a Confederate soldier. You're the golden boy. You're what everyone around here loves. She's like, I'm here as a black woman in slavery. She's like, fighting for the same cause, but our fights are not the same. And I just feel like a lot of the frustrations that black creators are feeling, I know a lot of people have good intentions and it's not necessarily coming across the way that it should be. This is a book that you should maybe read, because she really has to point it out for him. Like, I appreciate you for doing this, you know, I appreciate you for being here and doing this. And you do have a good heart and you're doing the same thing, but don't get it twisted. Our fights for freedom and for the right thing are not and will not ever look the same. And it's just so powerful. I feel like this is a series that is kind of underrated by Alyssa Cole. Yes, her Reluctant Royal series is amazing. Everything that the Queen Alyssa Cole writes is amazing, but this is a series that I feel like definitely gets slept on, and it shouldn't be. I get it. Like, I hear people say all the time, I'm tired of the slave narrative. I'm tired of like the really heaviness. And trust me, this book was hard to make it through. It was so wonderful to see this romance develop, but also that realization that the hero has to come to realize, like, this, what I'm doing and she's doing are not this, like, they're not the same. They do not look the same. It was so good. And then a recent book that I read was Black Movie by Danez Smith. This is a poetry collection. Guys, if you subscribed to Scribed, I only used to use Scribed for the audiobooks, right? But I am constantly on there reading poetry, reading graphic novels, and this one was so good. There's a part in one of the poems that he talks about. He says, a woman came to me and said, I love your work. And he's like, I write about black boys being killed. What do you mean that you like my work? I don't know if haunting and beautiful are two words that can go together, but this book was hauntingly beautiful. I mean, it's just, he writes it in a way that it's kind of like a movie set or a movie film, and there's just all these little black children looking into the camera smiling, and then it pans to a pistol. It's so good. It's so vivid, and it's not easy to get through. I mean, it's a short collection, but his words, what he's talking about, are really hard to swallow, especially as a mom. I'm like, he could easily be writing about my son. And I also am just such a believer that if you want to really know the heart of what's going on and understand how people are feeling, turn to poetry. I will never stop recommending NIKKI Giovanni. She was my first favorite poet. I remember I read The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac Shakur. I really need to track that one down, and I became obsessed with poetry after that. And I don't even remember how, because this is in the days before the internet being what it is now, but I discovered NIKKI Giovanni and I never looked back. If you can track this one down, there's a poem in here called Mothers. There's a poem in here called Legacies that are absolutely amazing. And another favorite is Autopsy by Dante Collins, and it's so beautiful. I love this poetry collection so much. I hope that this video makes some kind of sense. I just felt like I needed to get on here and dedicate an entire video to something. I'm really big on, if you're an influencer, right? You have this platform, you have people that are following you. What are you using that for? I know we're here, we're in the book community. It's like we're here to talk about books. But when people's lives are being affected, when people in your own community are exhausted and angry and afraid, I feel like as a community, you should be supportive of that. And I'm not gonna lie, I've lost a little bit of faith in the Booktube community because, again, 3 years ago, I found videos from 3 freaking years ago where we were having these same conversations, you guys. So I try to disconnect just for like my own mental health. I will spend an entire day doing mindless stuff, and then before I know it, the day is over. I try to be really mindful with what I do with my time. So I feel like a lot of times I don't know exactly what is going on at all times, but I definitely want to see better. And I definitely am just here to apologize to the Black creators that are coming into this community, because this was happening 3 years ago, and what did we do about it then? We should not be having these conversations still. But to those who have spoken out, I'm so proud of you for using your platform, and I thank you for speaking out, you know, for speaking out, using your platform. You are a true influencer. You are using your platform to call attention to stuff that needs to be discussed. Not everyone has the courage to do that. That is all from me today. I hope that this made sense. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. Thank you so much for taking the time and listening to me ramble on. I'll see you guys later.